At 17 years old, I became a quote unquote life coach, and I had no idea what a coach was. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it completely transformed my life forever. And I was able to transform some other people's lives as well. Well, help them transform their own. And coaching has been one of the most powerful things that I've ever done in my life. Probably the most powerful thing that I've ever done in my life because it led me down to the path that all of the things that I'm doing today. And I wanted to dive into some lessons that I've learned and how I got into coaching and how I feel qualified and able to help people one on one, especially through coaching. So when I was 17 years old, I invested about $10,000 into a coaching program. Again, I had no idea what a coach was. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea really anything that was going to happen in my life. But I invested into a coaching program of one of the biggest podcasters in the world. I'm not going to name the person, because I wanted to become a podcaster, and I also wanted to help people. And I really didn't know my way into that. But I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about coaching at the end of the podcast. And I ended up on a sales call. I got sold extremely well, and I invested about $10,000 into myself. Now, I didn't have $4,000 in my bank account, so I put it into a payment plan of $2,500 for 3 months straight. And then there was some additional costs as well. I had no idea how I was going to pay that off, mind you. But I invested into myself not only because the naivety and the optimism that I had, but because of the trust that I had in myself when I made that investment. And when I invested into myself, and something I continue to find in clients that work with me and clients that just invest in the coaching period, is that when you invest into yourself is when you finally are committed. Most people are interested in their goals. They're interested in the idea of making change. They're interested in the idea of losing weight. They're interested in the idea of building a business, of leaving their job, of doing whatever it may be. But not many people are really committed to making it happen. And when I invested that money, more money than I had in my bank account, and I had more money coming out because I put it into a payment plan, I was forced to figure it out and find a way to make it happen. And so one of the biggest lessons that I've learned more than anything is that when you invest into yourself, people who pay attention. And when I paid, I finally paid attention to the things that I said I wanted to do, but never really committed to doing. Now, something that I've learned from coaching people that are double my age is that we all have the same innate fears, whether it's judgment, it's lack of certainty, it's fear of failure, it's fear of success. We all have the same innate fears. We're all human at the end of the day. And the old wise tale that wisdom comes from time isn't necessarily true by any means. From experience, maybe, but in truth, it's from doing the actual work. Because many people go through their lives avoiding the problems that they don't want to face, so those problems stick around in their life. And it doesn't matter how old you are or what you've experienced, if you're never willing to actually face the problems that are in your face every single day and that hurt you and stop you from really creating a life that you're proud of and becoming the kind of person that's willing and able to overcome those problems. It really doesn't matter how old you are, because if you're not willing to face them, they will rule your life and you will just accept it as, this is the life that I'm supposed to live. This is the kind of person that I am. This is just who I am. And that's just not true. And I really realized that when I was coaching one of my first clients. I was 18 years old, and this person, she was 43 at the time, I believe. And this leads me into the second thing that has been really absolutely transformational when it comes to learning lessons and coaching people that are older than me. Judgment blocks you from understanding. I want you to think of this in a scenario of any kind of situation that you've ever been in. And you can think of politics as a great example. If they're on the left and you're on the right, or whatever you want to call it, if you know that they're opposed to you, you are already going to have judgment in your mind. And so understanding is most of the time going to be completely out of the window because they are on the opposite side of what you believe to be truth. And so one of the first clients I ever worked with, when she was 43, I was 18. You're probably asking yourself, how the hell did you make that happen? What did you do? How did you make that work? And it really comes down to one word, and that's openness. Because most people are closed off to learning because they're afraid of not having it all figured out. They're afraid of looking like a fool. They're afraid of being seen as vulnerable. They're afraid of facing what they have shoved down in their life for most of their life. And they don't want to face what they know or don't know is ruling their life at the end of the day. And this client had a multi-million-dollar business, never had to work again. ATM business, was doing insane, didn't really have to work ever. And she just wanted to find fulfillment. That's what she was lacking. She was lacking fulfillment in her life. And what it started as was this idea of developing this idea of a book that she had in her mind for about 8 to 9 years into a Pulitzer Prize nomination. And it wasn't just through like just taking action and just making it happen, right? Like I wasn't just there being like, yeah, you got this kind of thing. A lot of it was working through her inner child work and working through a lot of the things that she believed about herself, a lot of the things that she didn't recognize about herself, a lot of the things that were driving or stopping her from taking action, the things that she was doing or the inaction that was happening. And all of that kind of work eventually led her to divorce her husband as well. And within about 6 months, she made some of the biggest shifts that she'd ever made in her life, from the Pulitzer Prize nomination to her husband's situation to so many different scenarios in her life. And just the way that, more than anything, that I continue to come back to in a lot of conversations that I have, not just on the podcast, but in general, is that all that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. And a lot of people are trying to find fulfillment through achievement and through obtaining things. And then they realize that that doesn't really matter, because if you don't feel good about yourself, what's the purpose? I've spoken to billionaires on the podcast. I've spoken to people that have sold their company for tens to hundreds of millions of dollars, and they don't find fulfillment or don't find joy within themselves because they were trying to find it outside of themselves. And more than anything, and most of the things that you're trying to achieve in your life really come down to, how do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself, and what is driving your action, or what's driving your inaction? Because she found out through most of our work was that she was just hiding from herself, and she didn't really know who she was. And she made some of the biggest changes in her life because she didn't lead with judgment. And I really like to take on the perspective that age really is truly a concept. The amount of times that I've been called an old soul, or I've been told that I've lived many lives, is probably in the hundreds. And most of the people that I've had on this podcast are truly blown away by the conversations that we have, because I'm a 21-year-old. They usually probably hop on the podcast thinking, this is just a 21-year-old kid. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to make it happen. And then I ask insightful questions that they're not prepared for. And for me, I've gone into every coaching call, every podcast, every conversation as equal. I try not to put people on pedestals, and I, by no exception, will I ever see myself as above any kind of client. And that's a commonality that I've noticed in a lot of clients that have worked with me, is that when they've done coaching in the past, is that there's this kind of like this hierarchy of the coach is a superior to you, the client. And by no means do I have it all figured out. So I'm definitely not superior by any means, but I'm simply a mirror. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned through coaching, especially when I was 17, just getting started, was that I didn't have to have it all figured out. I just had to have the questions. I didn't have to have the answers. I just had to be a mirror and help people dig deeper and understand the psychology behind why people act in certain ways or why they don't take action in certain areas. And I really help people see what they're unwilling to see within themselves. One of the best things I was told is that I give permission and I give reminders, because we all have had scenarios in our life where we see what we're capable of. We see who we really are at our core. We see that inner child that we know we're capable of bringing out in our life, the creativity that we want to expose, the optimism that we want to believe in, the action that we want to take, the things that we want to do. We've all seen glimmers of that in our lives. Yet we need someone to remind us sometimes, because all we do, the number one thing that every single person on this planet does, is we forget. We forget our infinite capability. We forget our strengths. We always look to our weaknesses. And we just need someone outside of ourselves to help us recognize that, hey, I'm too close to my problems most of the time. And I need someone to help me recognize that, hey, that problem isn't as big as it really is. Or that problem is bigger than you think it is, and you're not giving enough attention to it. Like all of the blind spots that you have in your life, I have realized that I have been the person for other people to help them recognize them and move them out of the way. In the kind of scenario that I see it as is like, you're so close to your problems that you can't even see them anymore, because they have just become your life and you've accepted it as fate. And especially from coaching people that are, 10, 20, 30 years older than me, I've recognized that if you're willing to be open and you're willing to accept feedback, change can happen at any scenario in any time of your life. But most people are simply unwilling to put themselves in positions to be vulnerable, especially with someone that's younger than them, because their pride gets in their way and they hold themselves back from finding themselves and showing up in the world at the way that they want to show up because they're afraid of being vulnerable. And so much of the work that I've recognized in my one-on-one coaching is that almost every single problem is really an inner child problem. Like most of the problems that you're dealing with in your life, whether it's inaction or action, the things that you're doing, the things that you're not doing, the relationships that you're having, the relationships that you're not having, whatever it may be, it really all comes down to how were you treated as a child? How did you treat yourself as a child? And how has that evolved into the way that you live your life today and the person that you've become or the person that you're not happy that you are becoming? And more than anything, when I first got started, I thought my age was a something that really held me back from helping people. And it wasn't until that first client that one of the first clients I worked with that was more than double my age that I recognized, whoa, like my age is really a superpower because my perception isn't skewed by time. Because many people, as they grow, they get more naive, they get more closed off to life, they get more pessimistic, and they get more just um, they live with more apathy than optimism. And I think more than anything, if you're listening to this, I think one of the best things that you can do in your life is continuously lead with curiosity, whether it's um, in anything, really anything in life. And I think that that's how people have been able to work with me is they're just curious of like what could come from this. And one-on-one coaching has been so powerful for me. Even doing this right here, like this solo episode of just speaking to the camera is like helpful because it's kind of like a public journal. I'm just rambling right now. And a lot of the time when I'm on coaching calls, I'm not talking at all. I'm just helping that other person kind of release. And I think not a lot of people have that release, that safe space to be vulnerable, to be open, to talk about the things that they're unwilling to talk about with anyone else because they're afraid of judgment and they don't really have a safe space. And so if you're looking for a safe space, like know that there are people out there that are willing to give that for you and help you work through the things that you feel are insurmountable and just you're not able to overcome them because you've been dealing with them for so long. And if you want to chat, I'll leave a link below to chat more about like what one-on-one coaching looks like and how I got into all of this. But man, I just think it's really one of the most powerful things that I've ever done in my life. And I wanted to dive into some lessons that I've learned through coaching because as a 21-year-old, I feel like I've been doing this for so long, yet I'm just getting started and I have so many more things to do in this space. And I really enjoy one-on-one because it creates a safe space like that is really vulnerable in comparison to, not to say that group isn't vulnerable or different kind of things like that aren't, but not many people have like one person to really like confide in. And I've realized that I've really been that person for other people. And so, yeah, just wanted to dive into some lessons that I've learned through coaching, especially people older than me, um, from a really young age, because I got started that's really young and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I realized that I have an ability to help people open up and just express what they feel they can't express to anyone else. And so if you're looking for that, I will leave a link below. But I appreciate you for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.